Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2026, and this is Read Through the Bible.
And we're going to read Job 35, 36, and 37.
That's right. So we're still listening to Elihu. So yesterday we read his first and second speeches. Today we're going to read his third and fourth speeches.
Yeah, and if you remember, Elihu is that young man who was there present all the time, though unmentioned. The first we hear of him is in chapter 32, and he is seething with anger. It says here he's burned with anger 4 times. And he's angry because these old men are like missing the point with Job. They can't win the argument.
Right, they're not solving the problem.
Yep. So Elihu takes his 4 cracks at it, and he says he's going to try to solve the problem. In the first one, basically in verses 32 and 33, he says, Job, you are not in the right by professing you're pure. And then chapter 34, he basically says God is in the right because he does no wrong. In the third speech he has in 35, he just sort of rambles, and he kind of like loses his train of thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And ending it in chapter 35, verse 16, by saying, Job opens his mouth with empty talk. He multiplies words without knowledge.
So he's in the midst of rambling, Elihu is, and then he confronts Job for his empty, rambling words.
Yes.
So.
But I think then his best speech comes in 36 and 37, where he just speaks about the greatness of God.
Right.
So it says in verse 22, God is exalted in power. And then chapter 37, verse 14, hear this, O Job, stop and consider the wondrous works of God.
Right. That's a great summary for chapters 36 and 37 together.
Yeah. Which is going to lead us up to the conclusion of the book of Job when God basically exalts his wonders and his power.
Right.
All right, well, let's start with Elihu's third speech here in chapter 35 where he just rambles.
Okay, here we go. 35 verse 1. And Elihu answered and said, do you think this to be just? Do you say, it is my right before God? That you ask, what advantage have I? How am I better off than if I had sinned?
Yeah, and Elihu is correctly, just speaking about Job, was just saying like, okay, so if I have been righteous and this suffering has come upon me, like what advantage has been my righteousness?
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's responding to, verse 4.
Okay, verse 4. I will answer you and your friends with you. Look at the heavens and see, and behold the clouds which are higher than you. If you have sinned, what do you accomplish against him? And if your transgressions are multiplied, what do you do to him? If you are righteous, what do you give to him? Or what does he receive from your hand? Your wickedness concerns a man like yourself, and your righteousness a son of man.
So Elihu is basically saying God doesn't care. Like you can be righteous or wicked. God doesn't matter anything to you. You're so small and insignificant. And then in verse 9, he's going to speak about how the oppressed people, they cry out, right? Because they've been stirred in their flesh. Of course they cry out. But they cry out because of their pride. They cry out because of their pain. Verse 9, because of the multitude of oppressions, people cry out. They call for help because of the arm of the Almighty. But none says, where is God my Maker, who gives songs in the night, who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth, and makes us wiser than the birds of the heavens? There they cry out, but he does not answer because of the pride of evil men. Surely God does not hear an empty cry, nor does the Almighty regard it. Now here Elihu is basically saying that God is too high to hear us. He's so big, but he misses Job 1 and 2 that shows how God is intricately interested and involved in the life of Job. Verse 13 again, surely God does not hear an empty cry, nor does the Almighty regard it. How much less when you say that you do not see him, that the case is before him and you are waiting for him. And now, because his anger does not punish, and he does not take much note of transgression, Job opens his mouth in empty talk. He multiplies words without knowledge. It's like self-condemning is really what's happening there. If you look at for a summary, like verse 13 and verse 16 summarize it well. That God doesn't hear an empty cry. Job is talking with empty talk, but even Elihu is pretty empty at this point.
Right.
Okay, and then his best talk comes in 36 and 37.
Okay, chapter 36, verse 1. And Elihu continued and said, bear with me a little, and I will show you. For I have yet something to say on God's behalf. I will get my knowledge from afar and ascribe righteousness to my Maker. For truly, my words are not false. One who is perfect in knowledge is with you. He's saying that of himself?
He is. What arrogance.
Wow.
And young people often have arrogance like this. Okay, verse 5. Behold, God is mighty and does not despise any. He is mighty in strength of understanding. He does not keep the wicked alive, but gives the afflicted their right. He does not withdraw his eye from the righteous, but with kings on the throne he sets them forever, and they are exalted. And if they are bound in chains and caught in the cords of affliction, then he declares to them their work and their transgressions, that they are behaving arrogantly. He opens their ears to instruction and commands that they return from iniquity. If they listen and serve him, they complete their days in prosperity and their years in pleasantness. But if they do not listen, they perish by the sword and die without knowledge. I mean, that's flat out right prosperity gospel. If you obey, he's going to complete your days in prosperity, and if you disobey, don't listen, you're going to perish.
And there is a lot of truth in this.
A lot of truth, yep. The godless in heart cherish anger, and they do not cry for help when he binds them. They die in youth, and their life ends among the cult prostitutes. He delivers the afflicted by their affliction and opens their ear by adversity.
That's very interesting there. Verse 15, He delivers the afflicted by their affliction, and he opens their ear by adversity. Just of the ways that God uses affliction in our lives to open our ears and get our attention.
I think it's the quote of C.S. Lewis says something like this. He whispers to us in our pleasures, but he shouts to us in our pains. And I think that's what verse 15 is talking about for sure.
I know, it reminded me of Psalm 119, verse 71, which says, "It is good for me that I was afflicted, that I might learn your statutes."
Yep.
I think this is the first time we've heard this concept of what might be the purpose of suffering.
Yeah, we did hear Elihu then speak, though, a little bit about how it was disciplinary and how it, like in chapter 33, verse 29, about he does these things to bring back his soul from the pit, that he might be lighted with the light of life. So it's not retribution, but it's more discipline that God is using. And he is using the affliction to draw us out. And that's what Elihu is saying sometimes. A sub-point of what he says, which I think is good. Okay, verse 15 again. He delivers the afflicted by their affliction and opens their ear by adversity. He has also allured you out of distress into a broad place where there's no cramping. And what was set on your table was full of fatness.
But...
And now he's going to give some pastoral instructions here.
Yeah, these are very personal charges to Job.
Yeah.
But you are full of the judgment of the wicked. Judgment and justice seize you. Beware lest wrath entice you into scoffing, and let not the greatness of the ransom turn you aside. I sense here just where bitterness takes over and controls you.
Right.
Verse 19. Will your cry for help avail to keep you from distress, or all the force of your strength? Do not long for the night when peoples vanish in their place. Take care. Do not turn to iniquity, for this you have chosen rather than affliction.
Okay, and here we see a big change. He's going to now just talk about God. And I think this is where he gets it most correct in any part of his arguments. Verse 22. Behold, God is exalted in his power. Who is a teacher like him? Who has prescribed for him his way? Or who can say, you have done wrong?
Because Job's been pretty much saying God
that,
has done wrong.
Yes.
Verse 24. Remember to extol his work, of which men have sung. All mankind has looked on it. Man holds it from afar. Behold, God is great, and we know him not. The number of his years is unsearchable. For he draws up the drops of water. They distill his mist in rain, which the skies pour down and drop on mankind abundantly.
And we've known some of that yesterday. A lot of rain yesterday.
Oh, we did. Can anyone understand the spreading of the clouds, the thunderings of his pavilion? Behold, he scatters his lightning about him and covers the roots of the sea. For by these he judges peoples. He gives food in abundance. He covers his hands with the lightning and commands it to strike the mark. Its crashing declares his presence. The cattle also declare that he rises.
Yeah, and he's turning to God. I think a good summary verse is verse 26. Behold, God is great, and we know him not.
Right.
And
basically, we can't understand him.
Right. He speaks about the weather, and he's going to continue in chapter 37 about the weather, just demonstrating how powerful God is. So listen to weather terms. Consider yourself a meteorologist at this point. At this also my heart trembles and leaps out of its place. Keep listening to the thunder of his voice and the rumbling that comes from his mouth. Under the whole heaven he lets go. He lets it go, and his lightnings to the corners of the earth. After it, his voice roars, he thunders with his majestic voice, and he does not restrain the lightnings when his voice is heard. God thunders wondrously with his voice. He does great things that we cannot comprehend. For to the snow, he says, fall on the earth. Likewise to the downpour, his mighty downpour. He seals up the hand of every man, that all men whom he has made may know it. Then the beasts go into their lairs and remain in their dens. From its chamber comes the whirlwind and the cold from the scattering winds. By the breath of God ice is given, and the broad waters are frozen fast. He loads the thick cloud with moisture, and the clouds scatter his lightning. They turn around and around by his guidance to accomplish all that he commands them on the face of the inhabited world, whether for correction or for his land or for love, he causes it to happen. I think verse 13 is helpful there. Like, God causes all these things to happen, whether maybe it's correction, or maybe it's for his land to give water, maybe it's for love, like to turn you back. Like, there's lots of reasons why God might cause the great weather to come.
Verse 14, hear this, O Job, stop and consider the wondrous works of God. Very important verse right there.
Great summary verse of chapter 37, verse 14. Yep.
Verse 15, do you know how God lays his command upon them and causes the lightning of his cloud to shine? Do you know the balancings of the clouds, the wondrous works of him who is perfect in knowledge? You, whose garments are hot when the earth is still because of the south wind, can you, like him, spread out the skies, hard as a cast metal mirror? Teach us what we shall say to him. We cannot draw upon our ease because of darkness. Shall it be told him that I would speak? Did a man ever wish that he would be swallowed up?
And now no one looks on the light when it is bright in the skies, when the wind has passed and cleared them. Out of the north comes golden splendor. God is clothed with awesome majesty. The Almighty, we cannot find him. He is great in power, justice, and abundant righteousness that he will not violate. Therefore men fear him. He does not regard any who are wise in their own conceit. And there was kind of a slam on Job, but really in many ways, just God is above all things. And he doesn't consider those who are wise in their own conceit, but how ironic that is from how he began. Verse 4, chapter 36, verse 4, truly my words are not false. One who is perfect in knowledge is with you. He had his own conceit.
Yeah.
You know, it ended just like 35 did, the third speech of him. Job opens his mouth with empty talk. He multiplies words without knowledge. That's exactly what Elihu did. And even here, God doesn't regard anyone who's wise in his own conceit, and that's exactly what Elihu was. So he's kind of full of contradictions, but I think he's the best here
he is,
when he speaks about the sovereignty, the power of God. And we're going to see that's the answer to suffering, is that it's in God's hands and we can't really understand it.
Right.
Okay, we will see you tomorrow with this great expose of the questionings of God that shows his greatness. Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye.